The gospel today is from Luke 6, verses 39 through 45. And it's a parable that Jesus tells. And he kind of begins by talking about if the blind are just leading the blind, aren't they both going to fall into a pit? And then he really moves on to talk about the way in which we are hypocrites, that we are so willing to find a splinter in our brother's eye, but don't notice the wood beam in our own. And I feel like this gospel message is just perfectly timed because we have fallen into this pit of the blind leading the blind. People just constantly calling out the splinters in each other's eyes, ignoring the wooden beams in our own. We see this so much on social media. If you are a person who is on Twitter, it seems as soon as somebody posts something, people just can't wait to criticize and antagonize and attack with their words. And, you know, one of the teachings of Jesus that always speaks to me is the woman who was going to be stoned to death, and Jesus said, "Let the one without sin cast the first stone." I think today this gospel is reminding us we are all sinners, and we have splinters, we have wooden beams, we have so much sin within us. And then instead of calling each other out for the flaws or the sins or the things that we disagree with, maybe this parable teaches us and encourages us to help each other, to learn from one another, to open our eyes up to more than just our own perspectives. You know, there's one teacher. He is the ultimate teacher. And at the end of the day, we need to trust in his words. We need to trust in his guidance and in his leadership. So before we are ready to call somebody out for the splinter that we see in their eye, maybe we need to go to Jesus first. What do you say about that, Jesus? Before I react, before I post, before I speak something that may hurt, what do you call me to do? And week after week, he calls us to love. He calls us to accept. He calls us to not cast the first stone. We are the blind leading the blind because we're not looking to him. We all have splinters in our eyes. We all have wooden beams in our eyes. We are blinded by the world. We are seeing what the world wants us to see, and it's blocking our vision of what he wants us to see. So as we begin to enter in as Catholics a Lenten season, I know I'm going to focus on that. I want to be less hypocritical. I want to open my eyes to God and what he is asking of me, and to become more open to his words and his ways than the world's. And I want to not be that person who casts the first stone. And so I ask that you join me. Let's stop being so blind, and let's become people who see the good that God can do in our lives and look to him more than to the world. Have a great week.